I'm Gentleman Josh Hill.
I'm Aaron Jeffrey.
I'm Johnson Jazz Busiest.
I'm Mike Malott.
I'm Rafian Stock.
Tune into
Donttap.
Donttap podcast.
Donttap
podcast.
John Jones.
Follow me on Twitter.
Hey, I'm UFC President Dana White, and you're in the ring with Callum McGregor.
Donttap podcast. We are back here with Billy Briz. Billy, how you doing, brother? It's been a little bit. How's the betting world treating you? How's basketball been? I know the NBA's popping off. How was your last week bets? How things going?
Life's been good, man. You can't complain at all here. We got a nice little 9 out of 10 weeks straight of MMA here for the UFC. And hopefully I can translate over some PFL and Bellator success over to the UFC, because I definitely need it here. This is the time of year where this really, I kind of feel like, summarizes the year right here, the next 9 out of 10 weeks. This is going to be a majority of what your profile is going to have for the year for season stats. So it's time to really lock in.
And you did have a solid PFL performance. Talk about that briefly, about some of your hits on the PFL, man. I applaud you in that effort.
Yeah, PFL was really good last week. We had no UFC, but we were not short of combat sports. PFL hit underdog of the night, Thad Jean with a crazy knockout. Got to put him in the season. Main card was really nice. Brandon Loughnane had to knock him out in the first round, not the second and third round. But can't complain. We move on to this week. Nice little boxing fight on Saturday night. We usually don't talk about boxing here, but Ryan Garcia does it again, man. Man goes crazy, but how crazy is crazy at plus 475?
That man sold some tickets.
Made 12 mil, man. Bet $2 million on himself. So God bless.
And you
him.
either paid for them or you metaphysically bought those tickets. Everybody bought those tickets. Like we bought them in some form. Whether he leaned in, I think he is sort of sliding off the rails at points, but he leaned into it. I think he realized he's not that off. He's a young kid who's wilding out. He's got money, and maybe he got caught in moments online, and then realized maybe I lean into this, and we got something.
Sounds like a man that got recently divorced and living the single life now, bachelor life for Ryan Garcia.
But let's be honest. If your boy steps in the boxing ring with him, Garcia dusts him. Mr. Sean O'Malley gets dusted by Garcia in the ring, and vice versa. O'Malley destroys him in the cage. So
O'Malley's got some
alone. I don't want to see it.
O'Malley's got some boxing experience. I don't think he's ever fought a pro fight boxing wise, but he's got a couple of amateur bouts under his belt.
And O'Malley would probably run a line like, I don't have to worry about the calf kick or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But all right, brother, let's jump into this fight week. And there's actually some decent value if you really, really dig, but man, it's hard. It's hard to find some of it. And now that we are later in the week, some of the lines are set in stone. Like I know that over at the Darce podcast that I'm actually doing some work on right now, Slick came out with Ronnie Yaya, which I fully agree with, and I think you backed Ronnie Yaya at points where there is value on him to some degree. And the market saw that it was at like plus 430. Now it's down to about plus 330. So, I mean, if you're already on that early, you've already made some money on that alone. But yeah, just some lines out there. Not one I'm going to touch this week. I have a couple spots I really want to look at. A really big monster prop that I really want to bounce off you and see what you think about it. I got a prelim parlay. And we'll dig in today, man. What's your first spot for UFC at the motherfucking Apex?
Yeah, got to narrow down to see the money line's kind of coming down to 2-1, but we also have the KO or decision prop, or just the KO prop, or the under 2.5 here. I'm looking at Mahashate versus Gabriel Benitez on the early card here. I know Mahashate hasn't really lived up towards his UFC height throughout his run so far, but there's some chinks in his wrestling game, but I don't think that's going to be a problem here in this fight. He should have a huge size advantage and speed gap here, 11-year age advantage here for Mahashate in this spot. I think that's the biggest spot on the card for age advantage here on this one. But Benitez's durability has just declined fight by fight by fight. It feels like been finished 3 out of his last 4 fights. Most of them are usually by submission, but he's getting clipped in these fights. If you're watching the film, he's getting clipped a lot in these fights. This line's a little bit hefty, but I do like Mahashate by knockout this weekend.
Yeah, great point about Benitez. I mean, being finished 3 out of his last 4 fights, that's got to play a toll on your mental. And I wonder if he's doing anything about that. I mean, late in his career, probably not, with regards to sort of changing and reframing your reference. Because if you're playing in a defensive mode, like you're about to be finished at all times, because that's where that mindset goes, you're going to get finished. You're going to get knocked out. That's why some guys, you call them chinny. And I know we've talked about this time and time again. It's not necessarily always chinny. It's overthinking and second guessing yourself and being in the wrong place at the wrong time because you're overthinking the knockout. So, I definitely like that. That actually drops me into my first play of the week, which is a prelim parlay. One is a fade of a fighter, and one is backing Mahashate as well too. So we got Mahashate and Ketlin Souza for a prelim parlay at -106. Marnik Man, I just think that although she's someone I did back at points on the regional scene earlier in her career, we were able to see her in LFA, and it burned me as well too. The size has been an issue for her. There's just been multiple issues. I don't know. I just think she's going to get steamrolled in this fight. The line is just set where it is. She hasn't been able to really chain together her wrestling and her striking properly. She hasn't really been able to put everything together the way that she needs to. I know that her boyfriend's a fighter, and I know that they live fighting or have lived fighting, but I don't know how she bounces back off of her losses time and time again. So I don't think Marnik Man is the side. I think Souza's just going to go in there and steamroll her, whether it's on the feet or on the ground, she's gonna be able to have her way with her in this one. So Mahashate Ketlin Souza prelim parlay -106.
Yeah, I like it. I was looking at a little three-leg parlay, but I it's figuring out the third leg piece kind of. The two chick fights are kind of really hard to call. Both of them really big favorites, but you kind of lean towards Caitlin Souza. I don't know if that's like my betting bias because she's a little bit cheaper of price tag, and the other girl, La Niang, she'll give it a go in the first round, and it's just like I don't know, man. Three-leg parlay though I'm looking at is James Donttap, Caitlin Souza, and Victor Henry. A little -110 three-leg parlay. Don't like doing the three legs in UFC, but it's one of those type of weeks. I like James Donttap a lot against Chris Padilla.
And no, so is that one of your plays? Is that going to be one of your plays? The three
No,
leg parlay?
to be honest with you, I was just
No, yeah,
shoot.
yeah, yeah. No, I like it. I like it. Just throwing that out there. What would be your second play that you want to bring to the table?
Yeah, second play. Not a popular pick, but I'm kind of looking for an underdog shot here. Kind of, I would say the line has made me research the fight more, and the more I kind of research the fight, I think I am gonna have to take a dog shot here with Ariane Lipski. I know Silva's been rolling in the UFC so far, 3 first-round finish subs. We've been on each and every one of them inside the distance, but she's yet to be really tested so far in her career, in my opinion. Her best opponent's been Marianne Moreau's, and somebody I'm not really too high on. Graded, she revenged her loss from that one off the regional scene. But Lizzy's coming in with a lot of momentum herself, man. She's fighting off these young prospects. She seems to have turned the corner around, becoming more confident in her game. And she's yet to lose a fight in her career by submission. Her boxing is going to have to be the X factor here. She's going to have the better of the boxing exchanges later on in the fight. But the main reason why I like Lipski here is because I don't agree with the total. Total's kind of juiced towards the under 2.5, but that's more for Silva's fight win condition here, which is by submission. I think Lipski, if this goes 15 minutes, I favor Lipski in this fight. I think she should be the favorite. She's been to 11 decisions. Silva's only been the one in her career. The more proven fighter here is Lipski, despite the line movement. I like her in the spot at plus money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why not as far as the dog shot. I know that a lot of people are either on one side or the other with this, and maybe even a lot more actually, maybe even leaning more to the favorite. But with Lipski, I mean, her grappling has come along. I mean, it's a little bit more opportunistic submissions that she's thrown out there, but at the same time, her full MMA game has come along as well too. And you know that she has the high level pedigree and the striking, and that's where we've seen some little bit of issues in Silva's game, where she doesn't really look like she's in control of the fight on the feet at times. She has that karate style and she sort of stands out, but she sort of looks like she's getting behind until she's not. And she always has that submission quality in her back pocket and is able to use it and gets to it, a hell of a lot better than a lot of other jiu-jitsu practitioners out there. But will she, as the levels climb, is she going to be able to get to it? Is she going to be able to actually get Lipski in control and get her back or take a neck or do the I don't know. Is Lipski going to get caught in an armbar? I don't know. I faded Lipski so many goddamn times. I'm just not doing it again. I faded her against O'Neal. I faded her against Gatto. I didn't fade her against Aldridge. I think I stayed off that one, or maybe even backed her actually. But yeah, man, I just think that it's a good spot. I think I sort of ended up wanting to stay off it because I went back and forth a little bit with it, but at the same time, I fully see value in the dog. So I like it.
Yeah, that line flipped. Lipsky was originally the favorite. A lot of money came in on Curry and Silva at like plus 120, plus 115, where the books kind of had their hands crossed and had to flip the line. And I think they're going to get some casuals this week with that minus 150 line. It looks like a runaway favorite there. But then when you start really digging into the fight, man, I think Lipsky's a live dog here on this main card. There's not a lot of live dogs, in my opinion, like that I want to go to the window with that doesn't have a lot of red flags. But this is one spot that I think on the card that I actually think the wrong fighter favored.
Okay, I'm gonna bring my second spot to the table. It is the co-main event. Ryan Spann, Bogdan Guskov. And I'm going to back Ryan Spann in this one, man. I think this is a bounce back spot for him. I know the line is getting away a little bit, and I think that Spann's going to get a little bit of love, but I found a way to play it. I think Guskov, I think this is a huge level check for him. And I think that Spann's has shown that he's able to go a full fight. Spann has shown that he has the power. And he also has the submission game as well, too, and very opportunistic with that guillotine, and I absolutely love it. This is, for me, it's the level check here. And I think that with Spann, if you look at it, the way that the books had this lined, KO or sub, so inside the distance is minus 165. But this could actually go the distance. And Spann could just sort of dominate with some power and some big moments. So I like Spann minus 3.5 at minus 170. Because I think I played this fight out in my head so many different ways, and sure, I can maybe say that this is me trying to be a guru in the situation and think I'm a philosopher when it comes to picking fights, but this is the one I sort of zeroed in on. I like Spann actually by submission as a prop, but that's a neither here nor there, not a play I'm putting out. I think he gets this done inside the distance, but I like Spann minus 3.5, minus 170. I just think the matchup wise, the power is going to be too much. And I think he's been there. He's been under the lights. Losses have value against high-level guys.
Light heavyweight division, sometimes I do get baited into the power shot. And I think it's the market that's kind of swaying me off of this one. It's just like, what side of plus money do you want to be on? Because I think if Ryan Spann gets this done early, I think it's probably going to have to be a submission. But Bogdan Gustav, round one, knockout plus 430, round two, 10-1 odds. I mean, like, fuck. The value side might be the side. One of these light heavyweights, I feel like both of them aren't going to cash. And that kind of leads to my second spot of the night here, or I should say third spot of the night here. I'm looking at Denise versus Austin Lane. Kind of a chalk donkey spot, but sometimes the chalk donkey kind of hits a little bit here. We're going to have to probably get a Denise rounds 1 or 2 by knockout to kind of eliminate the juice still a little bit here. But Denise, not the most talented heavyweight, but he hits hard. That's enough for the UFC heavyweight division here. Former kickboxer, all 6 wins, first round KOs. Lane, former Jacksonville Jaguar, NFL draft night tonight. Fits the theme of the week. But while I digress a little bit, it's the body frame that it looks promising, but it's the chin issues that kind of makes me not want to back Austin Lane here in this spot. How can you have a shitty chin and you're somewhat of a wrestler in the heavyweight division? Wrestlers in the heavyweight division have historically been a fade for me. It's not like the other weight classes where you can really dominate your wrestling. We see this all the time at the top of the division with Curtis Blades and stuff like that. Look how that elite pedigree wrestling ends up working for you. You end up getting knocked down on your feet sometimes. All 4 career losses here for Austin Lane, all first-round finishes. I mean, this fight's pretty binary. He gets constantly clipped in all of his fights. So, Greg Hardy, who made his MMA debut, that was on the Contender Series. He has absolutely no chin whatsoever. He was able to knock him out. Frank Tate, a 500 regional scene fighter. Vernon Davis, who got knocked out by Thomas Peterson in his last fight in the LFA. Justin Toffin, both of those fights. Granted, one of those was an eye poke, but he was getting his ass beat.
Yeah, 100%.
The theme here is the striking defense and the chin isn't really heavyweight conducive. You might be able to get a good live line here on Austin Lane if he's able to weather the storm early, but I think this fight's pretty binary. I got Denise by knockout or Austin Lane by decision, but the one that we're really gonna roll here is Denise by knockout rounds 1 or 2. But I mean, Austin Lane by decision at plus 900. I definitely think if this goes to the judges' scorecards, that that heavily favors the Austin Lane win condition here in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think of this fight and all I see is Austin Lane getting knocked out. So I think you're pretty much on that side. Like I tried to even look to it when I really break this down and how it would be, and that's just it. He's going to get likely starched. The guy doesn't really, I don't know what it is about him. He doesn't really, but I do see the live line situation where if you can extend it over past, I get it, where he'll be able to sort of maybe muscle out a decision. But yeah, no, I like the value on the KO, but for me it was a stay off completely. But Austin Lane just not at the level. Don't know why he's here. And
Yeah, I don't blame you at all. What was your second or third spot of the week here? We got a lot of honestly, the lines don't reflect it, but the fight conditions reflect the 50-50-ness of this card.
I got a crazy one. I got a plus 1800 prop. Okay. I'm gonna go with the Dirty Bird, Tim Means. I think that, with regards to Medic, there's a lot of love coming in for Medic, and there's all this vividness of him lighting up Means on the feet. And I could see it 100%. I could see it being greasy as hell, but that's the kind of stuff that Means thrives in. And when you give me a certain amount of value, this is more of a value dog play straight up, because there is a world where Means just goes in there and absolutely gets like just bodied on the feet, just destroyed by Medic, because Medic does have some pretty high level striking. But if Means makes this greasy, he gets in there close, starts throwing some elbows, dirty boxes, gets up against the cage, and starts to even chain wrestle a little bit. And I know he likes to stand out there and slang and bang a little bit, but there's a definite path. I mean, Medic's only 2 losses come via submission, and I know that 25% of Means fights, so I think it's like 5 out of his 20 wins have come via submission. But at plus 1800, Tim Means by submission. I don't know. I'm in on it. I like the value on it.
Fight though.
I know it's a sprinkle. It's a sprinkle. It's not something that's gonna happen. Like,
you might want to go to the decision prop, because I feel like with Medic's fights,
but that's not what I'm chasing here. I'm not chasing, like, that's not exactly that I think it's gonna happen at a high clip. It's just I think there's a lot of value here. Medic is only 2 times he's lost, he's given up submissions because he's just that guy to do it. That's how he loses, right? So for me, I'm just going to jump on this. It's a value play more than anything, not the prop that I'm chasing, because I really think this is the decision prop that hits at a high clip, and I want to chase that, that plus money value to likelihood ratio. This is just plus 1800. Means I know 25% of his wins have come by sub, but man, this just seems like a perfect recipe, and I want to be on the right side if the ticket hits. That's more it than anything. This is more value plays than anything on this whole play together. Means is a dog, and Means is the sub. The sub's not even really a play. It's more of the extravagant prop out there. The play is Means. I mean, I'm going to go Means dog plus 250, and I might even look at it live to watch how the fight goes. It's going to allow me to either hedge or if Means brings some chaos, but Medic takes over still, and I feel like it's going Medic's way, I might be able to get on the other side of it, or just double down on Means if I just see him starting to take over with some dirtiness. So the Dirty Bird to Means, give me the dog. I like chasing value on the guys that are a little more proven in even in losses or wins at the level. So for me, give me Dirty Bird.
I like it.
I'm sorry to cut it off, but I just wanted to just let you know, like, that's where I was going with the prop. It wasn't that I'm I know decision props probably a good one to look at too, but that's where I may get that value on the live line.
Yeah, I don't blame you. The live line is probably going to be reflected in the decision prop odds as well. Another spot that I was kind of looking at this week, I know it doesn't really go in order here, but
all good.
I like Michael Figlak this week, man. I was high on him in that Freeze Zion fight. That was a Paris fight, but with the rumblings around the corner of UFC 304 being in Manchester, England over there, the land pond over, Michael Figlak might be making some noise here. It could be a quick turnaround for him if he doesn't take a lot of damage here in this fight. It's definitely got to be in the back of his thought here. thought process here fighting in Apex is let me get this quick win, get a quick turnaround, grab the mic, and see if I can get a UFC 304 prelim fight. I mean, Austin Hubbard's a legit vet, no doubt. Second stint in the UFC. He's very well-rounded, but I wasn't high on that Ultimate Fighter series. That Ultimate Fighter series was a bunch of unproven prospects mixed in with a lot of bunch of veteran prospects. We saw how Kurt Holobaugh looked after that fight against Austin Hubbard, got absolutely smoked in there. I think Figlak coming off of a layoff here, he should look improved here in this spot. There's a solid amount of volume, and he should be the more aggressive fighter. The line's kind of got away a little bit here, but I like Michael Figlak by KO or decision here at -150.
And I second that. I think Figlak's volume is going to be a problem for a guy like Hubbard, who's just hittable. He sort of lives and dies by the sword in his approach with the striking. He doesn't really set it up with strategy. He just sort of comes forward and he's there to be hit. He can land damage, but at the same time, he's a very hittable fighter. So I just think that you're on the right side of this, and I like the potentially inside the distance or the KO on that as well too. Figlak, not a bad spot at all. And even at what's the book right now?
Yeah, I mean,
Best
it's gone
spot.
up to -186 here on FanDuel. That's why I had to kind of eliminate the juice here and kind of really narrow in on a win condition. I think it's by KO or decision. If there's going to be wrestling exchanges, it's going to be Austin Hubbard probably taking down Michael Figlak, but Michael Figlak popping right back up. Austin Hubbard has the ability to get takedowns, but not really a guy that's going to do the Dagestani and control type of style. He's more of the American folk style wrestling, grab you by your hips, bring you down, and hopefully you could sprawl and get back up. Figlak should be more ready enough to go here in this spot. Sometimes the UFC hype kind of doesn't all come through when you're on one of those big cards. Kind of need that Apex me up spot, and this is the spot that I kind of see him winning here at a pretty high clip here. I would pay up to -200, but I don't want to pay -200 on a card that I'm not really too stoked about. So the -150K or decision, that kind of brings it back down to where the fight opened up on domestic books. So that's kind of one of the props I was looking at.
Okay, so I got two things for you. The first one is a live line watch. You don't necessarily have to give a take on it, and then we'll jump into a fight I have a question for you on. A live line watch would be Ronnie Yaya, and the meaning is he was already at +430, and now he's at +330. So I'm saying in the fight, it's still really wide. And this is where actually when you have the books that are leaving these lines open and they're live, and you can pretty much throw in your bets wherever you need to. Ronnie Yaya is a guy who fights close in fights. I know he's at the end of his career. I know that it's likely, one or two more fights left, or at least we've been saying that for the last 2 or 3 years. His grappling is very high level, and if he gets to your back, you're in trouble. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to submit you, but he'll control you for a full fight. If he figures out how to get there once, he'll do it again. So all I'm saying is when the line's really wide like that, if a guy like Victor Henry, who's found his way out of fights at times, find his way out of fights, you got to be able to look at that line, and because you have that room, you might be able to jump in and get value on that. Ronnie Yaya, I just think that there is a little bit more value on the dog there, but for me, the line's already moved, and when it's moved already 100 points, I'm not touching it that way. But I think I'll watch it and definitely look at it from a live value situation.
I just don't see it with Ronnie Yaya. Granted, he might be one of the best submission grapplers, but that's not what the UFC is anymore. The way that he fights was valid in the mid 2000s. The way that the UFC is now, everybody's well-rounded. Victor Henry has good takedown defense. The only, I would say, red flaw in his takedown defense is he does the thing where when he gets up, he does give up his back, but I actually think that he's going to be able to get a finish here late in this fight, man. The Ronnie Barcelos fight is very. I can kind of see this going how the Ronnie Barcelos fight went. I'm actually more looking for props here on Victor Henry, rounds 2 or 3 by knockout, +470. I could definitely see a third round finish here by Victor Henry. First round's a little bit close. Second round, he pulls a little bit more damage, and then he kind of gets him out of there at the end of the third or the third round. I actually favor. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually favor Victor Henry pretty heavily in the spot at -500. If you erase the names and you kind of just put the skills there, I just don't see how Ronnie Yaya gets this one done. Granted, one of the dopest, I would say, longest tenured fighters. I remember him fighting in the WC wherever the before the UFC was the UFC. So Ronnie Yaya has been around for a long time. I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to play the Ronnie Yaya rounds 1 or 2 by submission prop there. Rounds 1 or 2 submission, 12-1 odds. I feel like that's his only win condition, but I actually think Victor Henry gets this job done in the second or third round. Not my favorite parlay piece. This is more of a half unit type of parlay type of thing this weekend.
Don't parlay Victor Henry. Even if it wasn't Ronnie Yaya, we will learn our lesson on Victor Henry.
We faded him, we've backed him. Shouts to Rafael and Sunsal. He was able to get that big W over Victor Henry. It seems like the market's been off historically on Victor Henry price fights. They're either too high or too low on him. But in this one here, man, I just don't see how Ronnie Yaya gets it done.
And so let me clarify. So I don't even see enough value in for me to hit it at plus 330 right now as a dog. I only liked it because you could see the value on the market with 100 points. For me, I'm just saying he's made it greasy at points and Henry's found his way out. Do I see that happening like 100%? No, not necessarily. I think Henry, if he does show up and does volume with striking and try to keep it on the feet, it's just he has let like you're saying, people get his back. Yaya's takedowns are sort of jiu-jitsu style stuff. He clings to you, sticks to your leg, crawls up your back, scales you like a ladder. So those are the kind of things that he's got to be careful of, and he's a little sloppy with. So that's the only thing with that, and that's why I'll watch it live. If it's not there, hell, I'll just stay off it, and I'm cool with it because I fully see what you're saying. Henry could actually go out there and finish this. If he stands on the feet, it's not even close. Victor Henry goes out and destroys him on the feet. But Henry, there's just a recipe for potential value on something. If you did get on that plus 430, then you already made money and can even cash out at this point, depending on your book. But yeah, man, just with how these live lines are just staying wide open, there's value when these lines are really wide to really see even on either side, whatever way you look at it. But
700.
Yeah, I see your breakdown, and I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah,
not necessarily my dog of the week, but I want to talk about this fight because I almost took a shot at this, and then I didn't. But every time I look at this fight, all I see is David Onama knocking out Jonathan Pierce. And now I back both these guys, and don't get me wrong, I love Jonathan Pierce, and I'm not even going against him because I love his smothering pressure. He's a guy I backed, ROI 1000%. And I see him likely winning either a decision and or a late finish, but via whatever way he wants, because David Onama does gas out because Pierce has that pressure to do it. And that's how I could sort of logically look at it. But then every time I look at these two on Tapology, all I see is an Onama knocking him out on the feet because Pierce has been he's had some durability issues on the feet and does leave his head hanging out there at times when he is pressing forward. So I stayed off it. Because of that reason, I'm just going to enjoy the hell out of the fight. It may look at a live situation depending on what Pierce does in there. He should win this fight. I know there's a little bit of love coming for David Onama. He does have the ability to get him out of there, man. And it's the thing that's, when you look at a fight or look at something and you keep seeing it, it's not that I'm necessarily saying that's what I want to happen or that's what I see really is happening. But David Onama, does he get the KO or what does Pierce do in this fight?
I'm actually right there with you, Cal. I kind of like the David Onama line, but I end up having to kind of revert towards how do I get the best bang for my buck, as the kids would say. I think the decision no bet prop here on David Onama at -106, you put a quarter unit on that. And if it goes to the judges' scorecards, I think that fight very heavily favors Jonathan Pierce. But you also sprinkle a little bit on the KO prop at plus 300. That could be one way to look at it. Go quarter unit on both. If he does get the knockout, you cash both of those props. But if it does go to the judges' scorecards, you kind of get your money back. Could be one of those spots depending on how your unit size is and how much you're willing to risk. But I mean, if you have the infinity amount of bankroll and you could just go dog shot for dog shot, I definitely don't mind the pure underdog shot. But if you kind of want to narrow it down a little bit, trying to get, some of your money back, I think the decision no bet prop here for David Onama is pretty spot on though. -106. Jonathan Pierce seems like the books are heavily favored him to win this by decision as his main win condition here at -174. But I'm the two dog shots that I was looking at on the main cards, David Onama and Ariane Lipsky.
Yeah, no, I see it. And with David Onama, I know that right now the KO prop is pretty much aligned with Pierce's. They're about plus 300. With Pierce, I mean, you could actually even be sitting on a David Onama ticket at plus 300 for a KO. In that first round, Onama, if he doesn't get the KO, you could then maybe he's landed some big shots on Pierce and actually put the pressure on Pierce first, if that's how he comes out. I mean, this is a potential live situation. And then Pierce, if he drags it on, Onama starts to gas in that second round, Pierce will take over.
My biggest
so then
red
you come out on
flag.
the other side of it to hedge your bet if you don't get that KO prop, I'm saying.
Yeah, no, my biggest red flag here for Jonathan Pierce is I think he's going to be able to get the takedowns, but we've seen it on UFC 300. We've seen it throughout the whole entire year. Takedowns don't mean shit, bro. If you're not throwing ground and pound on top of it, like they're not grading out that old Russian Dagestanian style of wrestling where you can just lay and pray on top of somebody. Especially in the Apex, like they want to see finishes. And David Onama is going to have the, I would say, the damage. This is damage versus control time. This is what you got to ask yourself. It's the theme of the card. Do you want to go with the younger prospect that's a little bit less unproven, or do you want to go with the guy with the better resume? I feel like that's been kind of the yin and the yang on all of these fights. You have a proven veteran that's made a couple of UFC stints or maybe not had the best UFC run versus the young prospect that maybe this is the time that they turn the corner. Maybe this isn't the time that they turn the corner. It's definitely a prove me type of weekend here for the UFC Apex here.
It's actually a great point. With the wrestling, you could be looking at a fight where a guy can take that guy down 3 or 4 times. And if you're looking ahead at the stats and you see 3 or 4 takedowns, doesn't mean shit if he's not attacking submissions, like aggressively attacking submissions and or landing some shots. So
It
you could
kind of
have a guy
reminds
who,
me of the Bubba Jenkins line that we got baited into last week. Bubba was able to get some takedowns, but what do takedowns mean if you're not ground and pounding and going for submissions? I could see this fight in theory playing out the same as Jonathan Pierce's Bubba Jenkins. He's able to get the takedown in the first round, gets a couple in the second, closes the fight in the third. But when that judge's scorecard comes out and we look at the stats, it's like damage versus control time. Damage is going to win more 8 times out of 10 in these spots nowadays.
it's going to be interesting too to see David Onama an extended time now at Factory X to see exactly what's going to come out of that. You know, like he's been there for time now. What does that look like? Even though Tapology still has him hanging out with James Krause. But yeah, I mean, since his last fight, what he fought, man, it's been a little bit of time. He
Yeah, I
fought
think
back in 2023.
that Nate
Yeah, okay.
Lambert fight was way too much damage to come back from. You know, you got to take some
Yeah,
time to polish up
fair
your
enough.
game.
We shall see. Definitely an interesting one. Any other spots you want to look at?
Now that nothing really standing out to me too much here. Kind of a type of fight card where you're gonna have to really kind of stay away from the parlays and kind of really narrow down the win conditions of these fighters. There's more value in the props than the money lines, I feel like.
You may have made me rethink, and even looking at the over/under on the Ryan Spann one. I think if I'm going to go Spann, I may just go some form of violence, maybe even just attack a round 1 either side prop now. So I appreciate that, and I'll put that out as I sort of structure how I want to look at that one. Although I felt like that was sharp, I don't know if that's where the value is, if that makes sense.
I think the value's in the sub. If you told me Ryan Spann went out here and took a couple of shots, threw a couple of shots, ducked in under, squeezed up, lifted him down. The way Bogdan Gustav fights, he keeps his hands low a lot. So that's good for like defending takedowns. But what's defending takedowns when you're fighting I would say a true American folk style wrestler that's going to suck in on your hips, lift you up, drag you down, and try to fish towards your back immediately. We kind of seen the Volkan Ozdemir fight. I can't get that fight out of my head for Bogdan Gustav. The Zach Palka fight wasn't even really like Zach Palka's just Zach Palka, you know, granted, not a true light heavyweight.
Not a good measuring stick.
Not a good measuring stick. I agree, but that's how I kind of see Gustav. It's the theme. He's losing fights until he's winning, and that's the light heavyweight division. But I like Ryan Spann by sub, though. The more and more I think about it, I could definitely see Gustav getting a little bit overzealous on a shot. Ryan Spann kind of getting underneath that, taking him down. When you take him down, fish towards the back, he's wearing the Superman cape at the press conferences and stuff like that. You know what that tells me? Superman cape, if you're putting a cape around your neck, that sounds like a rear naked choke happening in the near future for Ryan Spann.
Okay, I like it. I didn't want to interrupt you there because on the Darce podcast, Mr. Plus put that out as one of his plays. He likes the Ryan Spann sub. I had seconded that because that was going to be one of my plays as well too. Then I talked it back to just going into the -3.5, trying to be conservative with it. But I like it. Your whole breakdown of that, I could actually fully see it exactly happening like that. So taking the back, taking the neck, and taking the dub home. So and then we all cash. I like it. For Billy Briz of Pub Sports Radio, I'm Callum McGregor. Tune into the Donttap podcast.
Hell yeah, let's get some money this weekend, boys.
I'm Gentleman Josh Hill.
I'm Aaron Jeffrey.
I'm Johnson Jazz Busiest.
I'm Mike Malott.
I'm Rafian Stock.
Tune into the
Don't tap.
Don't tap.
Donttap podcast.
Donttap.
Podcast. John Jones.
Follow me on Twitter.
Hey, I'm UFC President Dana White, and you're in the ring with Callum McGregor.